Hi and Assalamualaikum to everyone. My name is Kurotain Mardia from Group Ketuk-ketuk Ramadhan. So, as for today, my teammate and I are going to discuss as well as providing an in-depth elaboration on the issue of domestic violence. But before we jump onto the discussion, I'm going to firstly introduce my team members. So, firstly, we have Muhammad Azrul Shahiran, Muhammad Fahim Hushaini, and then we have Farah Nurin, as well as Norbaitisha Elisa, and then we have Rosmawati Masalan, Nur Ain Sofia, Sarah Vanessa, and Siti Radiatul Humaira. So without further ado, let's now jump into the first section of the discussion, which is the definition of domestic violence. So first of all, domestic violence, or also known as domestic abuse, or also called in another term as intimate partner violence, can be defined as a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power or control over an intimate partner. So abuse could be in form of physical, sexual, emotional, economic, or psychological actions. It could also be in form of threats of actions that influence another person. So basically, this includes any behaviors that frighten, intimidate, terrorize, manipulate, hurt, humiliate, blame, or injure someone. So domestic abuse can happen to anyone of any race, age, sexual orientation. It could also occur within a range of relationships, including couples who are married, living together, or even dating. So this domestic violence basically affects people of all socioeconomic backgrounds and education levels. Not to mention, domestic violence is also capable of exploiting mental, physical, economic, or sexual condition of the victims. This is also inclined to culminating in serious physical injury or death.
So for the characteristic of domestic violence, first one is the physical abuse. Physical abuse involves the act of the abuser hurting or torturing the body of the victim of abuse with the intent of intimidate the victim. Examples are slapping, hitting, twisting hands, arms, stabbing, strangling, burning, kicking, or even intimidation by using objects such as weapons or killing. This also includes all complete physical movement such as punching, kicking, pulling hair, stretching, and others that cause sufficient physical damage to be referred to the hospital. Extreme violence can result in death. In addition, forms of intimidation, both verbal and written, to commit physical acts are also considered physical abuse. So the second one is sexual abuse. Sexual abuse involves any form of sexual intercourse forced on the victim by the abuser. This is an abuse to have sex through intimidation, acts of intimidation or physical, where the victim is forced to indulge in unwanted sexual act or forced sex on another person. Examples are rape, incest, rape, improper touch, sexual harassment, forcing a mother to see a daughter being raped, forcing a father to rape his daughter, or a husband forcing a wife to have sex with another man. In this case, the victim could be a child, adult, senior citizen, and many more. Sexual abuse is also usually accompanied by physical and psychological abuse. For example, pedophiles typically threaten to harm a child, tells a family member about what happened to them. There are cases involving hard to detect drugs such as Rofinol that may be placed in the victim's ring so that the victim is delusional and does not remember the events that took place. So the third one is psychological abuse. Psychological abuse is also known as mental or emotional abuse. This abuse happens when a person controls information obtained by another with the intention of manipulating his or her reality. The abuser determines what is trustworthy or not. For example, a pedophile tells a child that the victim seduced the pedophile to commit rape on him. Pedophiles are adult individuals who have sexual predisposition to pre-puberty children. This includes behavior that are intended to intimidate and harass and occur in the form of threat to leave or abuse, confinement at home, observe and spy on movement, threat to take custody on children, destruction of property, and many more. Verbal abuse typically uses word or body language to criticize the victim with the intent of threatening or insulting. Such behavior is something that is difficult to identify or prove. This can cause the victim to experience self-confidence, lose of self-esteem, and can cause the victim to experience depression. As a result, victims of abuse feel themselves useless, worthless, and impossible to eventually punish themselves as unworthy of the good that exists in life. So the last one for the characteristic of domestic violence is the economic abuse. So economic abuse is more conducive to acts of financial neglect, such as denying rights, not providing reasonable expenses, refusing to contribute financially, denying necessities such as food, and controlling victims' access to healthcare, employment, and so on. Basic needs include proper food, shelter, clothing, hygiene, love, and healthcare. Child neglect is considered to occur when a parent or responsible guardian fails to meet the child's human rights or does not care for the children adequately. It may occur due to poverty or the stress of life, but is still considered a neglect. Upon failure to fulfill the rights of those under custody, the authorities may take the child away from the parents or guardians and take responsibility of care and education of these neglected children is placed under the care of a competent government agency. So that's all from me. I will pass it to my next group member to present.
Hi, so now I'm going to talk about the factors of domestic violence and what causes it. So basically, I've chosen 4 factors that seems to be reoccurring these days. Okay, so for the first factor is temper tantrums, and what temper tantrums actually is where a person who can't cope with the negative emotions and is unable to calm themselves down. Adult temper tantrums can be physical, verbal, or it also can be both. For example, someone might shout, someone might curse, someone might throw an object, and someone can be hitting their loved ones. So all of those are domestic violence. Okay, moving on to the second factor, which is life pressure. Life pressure is caused by 2 main factors. There are the external demands, challenges, obstacles, and difficulties that are a part of life. So basically, what I'm trying to say here, all of those of what I just stated just now, those are normal to be experiencing in someone's life. And what makes it not normal is when someone who can't control their emotions from it. Okay, so for the second cause of life pressure, are the internal demands and how it is closely linked to the first one. It comes so basically comes from your own expectations, attitudes, and demands. They carry this with them constantly and they act as a filter through which they view the external pressures. The pressure they feel is driven by their thoughts and imagining. So, in short, everything is just in their head and they think too much, and sometimes get the sudden outburst and they can't control it, they don't know what to do with it, so um they pass it down to their loved ones, also making it domestic abuse. Now moving on to the third factor, which is drug addict or alcoholic. So nearly 80% of domestic violent crimes are related to the use of drugs. The chemicals in their brains are rewired to seek out the substance when a person abuses drugs or alcohol. Addiction and domestic violence share a number of characteristics such as continued behavior despite the negative consequences, loss of control. Addiction and abuse tend to worsen over time. Both conditions involve denial or shame. So this is also a part of a systematic pattern of dominance or a need of control. A need to have control over another person's behavior often stems from distorted thought processes and deep-seated psychological distress, whether the perpetrator realizes it or not. The use of alcohol or illicit or prescription drugs only makes neurotic thought patterns more intense and destructive. Also, there are several emotional dynamics that contribute to domestic violence. The most prevalent involves a destructive critical inner voice or critical inner thought that perpetuates irrational thoughts such as, "You're not a man if you don't hit her," or "She is making fun of you. Who do you think they are?" Acting on the lies the voice is telling them and feeding them can also convince the aggressors to attempt to control their partner or their loved ones by taking violent measures toward their seemingly insubordinate or disrespectful partner. This unhealthy and often delusional inner monologue can be seen in both male and female perpetrators of this kind of aggression. Now, moving on to the last factor, which is financial problem. So, this is a form of financial abuse, can be subtle or overt, but in general, they include tactics to conceal information, limit the victim's access to assets, or reduce accessibility to the family finances. In some cases, financial abuse is present throughout the relationship, or in other cases, financial abuse becomes present when the survivor is attempting to leave or has left the relationship. Financial abuse is one of the most powerful methods of keeping a survivor trapped in an abusive relationship and deeply diminishes the victim's ability to stay safe and after living in abusive partner. Survivors' concerns over their ability to financially provide for themselves or their children. So, whether the um, the ways are subtle or not, subtle or overt, uh, they are common methods that abusers use to gain financial control over their partner. Those include forbidding the victim to work, controlling on how all of the money is spent, not knowing the victim, not allowing the victim to access to the bank accounts, and so on and so forth. And so that is all from me. Thank you.
Alright, thank you to Myra for the articulate presentation just now. Instantly, I will begin my presentation on the effects of domestic violence. So, effects could be contemplating on three classification, which are individual, family, and community. So first, we will look into the individual. So the individual that suffers from domestic violence might have a big tendency to get post-traumatic disorder (PTSD). So what is PTSD? PTSD is an anxiety disorder that is caused by a very stressful and frightening environment, as I say and state in the slide here. And why it's happened? One of the reasons it's happened is the domestic violence. Okay. So now, the person who has PTSD will see the changes from their emotional and physical through these four symptoms that I classify here. So the first one is anxiety. So where the person is going to be timid in conversation or in generally socializing. They mean that they are being constantly abused and brought to the insecurity of themselves that cause them being excessive nervous and lead to panic attacks because of the trauma and emotional scar that they face. Later, they will develop insomnia because of the nightmares they had after being abused emotionally and physically weak, which made them have flashback to traumatic incidents of them while in domestic violence, such as being punched in the face, being locked down in the house, and many more. So this kind of crisis in Malaysia is is quite common in Malaysia because of the reckless attitude of people, which I will explain in my next part why it's happened. So back to my point before, later on they will have a memory problem. After all, the brain could not process information when they are overworking and not getting complete sleep. Moreover, they will become emotionally numb where they don't feel anything anymore and losing the purpose of their life, or in easy words, in being lost. So this will lead them into having a suicidal thoughts because of not knowing the worth of their life and no plans to depend on, which force them into taking their own life. So not to mention that they will get depressed for many reasons, and one of them is being abused. Then they will shift to avoidance in their own emotion, where they don't feel anything about their life. Just what's going to happen is not even their concern anymore, even if they being hit. And lastly is the repetitive thoughts. This symptom could be aftermath of insomnia and anxiety, where the brain keeps replaying the memory of being abused and declining them to think properly that made them invasive in every situation that they have. They must to make abruptly decision. So, for example, the childhood trauma that they withstand when they are a child, also one of the we can say that one of the cause why they being invasive. So that's all for the first effects on individual. So we go to the next one, which is the physical effects. Right. So a person who used to be in domestic violence will likely to have this illness, as what I stated here, such as trouble breathing, chest pain, and rapid heartbeat. This illness is the trauma reaction from the body that influenced by our mental. This person will also develop Parkinson's disease because of the long period of living in a very stressful environment. Since we are human after all, we're going to be weak and being to lose energy if we constantly being abused, like in either in emotionally or physically way. All right. So yet they were also exposed to get injuries because of domestic violence is aliens to the fighting or bickering that cause them to get several injuries. And lastly, it will lead to death because of the extreme fighting incident that caused murder cases to happen, or the scar that they receive while fighting that not being treated in a medical way. Okay. So that's all for individual effects. We're proceeding on to family effects. This type of violence will obviously give trauma to the whole family members and the family itself. So firstly, it will tear down the relationship between the family members. This happened because of the trust issues towards the person in the family. Because, you know, if for example, like we have a family, here, and the father is the one who keep abusing the family members, the other family members, no matter it's a mom, it's a child, or grandma or grandpa. Basically, he is the one who abuse others. So when he abuse others and he's father of the group, or basically a leader of the family, so the children or the mom would be, they will not trust the father anymore because of his attitude that makes them trauma. And yeah, that's why I say it will tear down the relationship because of the trust issue that has been going on between them. Then the house will no longer feel safe because of the fighting that happened. That's like from fighting, from fighting, being hit, being abused. So probably one of the members decide to run away from home and being homeless, that is very far away from the Islamic way of life, where it's not being practiced because of bickering, always bickering, and also like they doesn't know how to handle it in professional way. But instead they handle it in violence way. They hit each other. So that is just a big problem here, and just the Islamic way is just being thrown out instantly, just like that. And then following the effects in the community or society, so violence is being normalized, and that's what happened right now. Basically, like if we see, we look into the like others country, like something happens, like mom being hit by her son, or like the grandmother being killed by her grandchild. And that also happened in Malaysia a lot. Yeah, actually it's happened in Malaysia. And also like the higher rates of alcohol, drug, and mental issues. So these issues have happened because of the losing the place to rely on. So, and also another way for them to cope up with their constantly unsafe lifestyle. Yeah. So that's all from me. I will pass to my next member for further explanation. Thank you.
Hi, very good afternoon, and Assalamualaikum to our lecturer, Ustaz Hausa. Okay, I will present about way to reduce and control domestic violence in socials and economic. Okay, I provide 4 points for the socials. The first one is a treatment or how to get help. The first one is seek help from neighbors or your friends, and the second one is make a police report, and the third one is you can contact Nurline, and the fourth one is you can go to hospital and clinic, and the last one is social welfare department. Okay, other than that, you can contact these two support group or NGO, Women's Organization and Women Center for Change. Okay, the third point is prevention and recovery. Parents facing mental or addiction problems can seek appropriate counseling and treatment at the hospital or the social welfare department for counseling. And children with physical, sexual, or emotional abuse can also be placed in the same place, such as their relative, hospitals, and shelter for their protections. Okay, the last one is these 3 important things that you can prepare for self rescue. Okay. The first one is before leaving the location, keep all evidence of abuse, and the second one is when leaving the location, make sure bring the important documents, medicines, and emergency money. The third one is after leaving the location, make sure to change your phone number, avoid to go to the same place, and using a different route to go to work if you're working. And please inform your neighbors and your family, and ask them to lodge a police report if you feel unsafe. The second point is economy. I provide 6 points here. Okay, the first one is you need to have a steady and stable job, and the second one is save enough money or plan a family finance, and 3, do not know what is wanted in life, and 4 is too much pursuit of career. The fifth one is failed to set a limit, and then last one is time constraints. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, I'm Farah. So I will proceed with this presentation to the next point, which is on how to cope with the domestic violence in political side. So basically, I think that the law itself should be enforced stricter to those who commit these abusive actions. we can actually see a lot of domestic violence cases out there that has not been taken any lawful actions, and I think that is one of the reasons as to why there's still a lot of these abusive actions that has been occurring in our society. So with that being said, I believe that the law itself should be enforced stricter on those who commit these actions, because we actually have a lot of law that stand against this violence, such as the Akta Keganasan Rumah Tangga 1994. So by that, I hope that the law will be enforced more stricter on those who commit these immoral actions. Not only focusing on enforcing the law itself stricter, but we also have to think about giving a suitable and proper punishment to those who commit these immoral actions. So I believe that commensurate punishment would be the best for those who commit this crime, because at least people out there will notice that if they commit the same crime, they will also get the same punishment or even worse. So this is actually to spread awareness among people that domestic violence is something that you cannot ever do, and that you will be punished based on what you do. Not focusing on the law side only, we will also be talking about the responsible parties such as the government and also the NGOs. I think most of us is aware about this one ministry, the government ministry, which is called as the Kementerian Pembangunan Wanita dan Wanita Keluarga dan Masyarakat, also known shortly as the KPWKM. They actually serves the rights for women, children, and community. Basically, things that are based on families, institutions, and something like that. I think that this ministry should take a much closer look into domestic violence cases that has been kept increasing day by day in this country, especially during this pandemic era, whereby everyone stays at home and they have nothing to do and people loses their jobs and so on. So I believe that domestic violence would actually outrage at this rate. That is why the cases keep on increasing during this pandemic era. But since we have responsible parties such as the KPWKM, I believe that the rate cases for domestic violence should be decreasing, because this responsible side could actually take many actions in order to prevent or to cope with this problem. One of it is by doing monthly survey to every family based on their data, to ensure and to check on them whether if their family institution is doing good or not, if there is any problem occurring and so on. Things like that could actually contribute to domestic violence actions. So I believe that all those necessary data should actually be recorded for every families all across this country. Besides that, I think NGOs and also KPWKM can also do some collaboration whereby they can make a lot more activities and also have a stronger institutions in order to prevent these domestic violence actions from occurring in this country. Maybe they can collab to do talks to spread awareness by doing campaign. So I think that with them collaborating with each other will make their job easier, and also it will spread a lot more awareness among people in this country. With all that being said, I pass to the next presenter.
For the next point is way to solve domestic violence. So I have 4 points here. First point is discussion between husband and wife. Both parties need to clarify their displeasure and their opinion in order to reach an agreement. For the second point is meeting counselor. By meeting counselor, they will be able to let third people listening to their problem and suggesting ways to solve their problem. Next is meeting their parents or ustad and ustazah. Since the elder is wiser people, so if we meet the parent and ustazah or ustad, we will be able to listen to their point of view and able to solve the problem that we are facing. The fourth point is ask for help from the authorities. If the domestic violence becomes severe or still happen after the 3 points I mentioned before, please make sure to ask for help from the authorities such as WOA, Women Aid Organization, or from the police. That's all.
Assalamualaikum. The next solution is divorce. If the first way Sarah said just now did not work, then use this method, which is divorce. Before we go any further about the divorce, let's know the 4 rules set by the Islam when it comes to the divorce. The first one is sunnah. It's sunnah when you're divorcing a nushus wife. Nushus is wife who cannot be counseled and rebellious or hit her husband. The second one is haram. Divorcing a wife who stay chaste and do not have intercourse or stay in pregnancy, childbirth or in heat, they will haram. And the next one is obligation or compulsory or must. You can divorce when there is injustice against you, like your husband hit you or punch you. The next one is makruh. Makruh when you're divorcing a wife without any reason or divorcing a solehah wife. But in the domestic violence, in our topic, the rule will apply is obligatory and must because it involves the safety. Okay, before you divorce, you need to know there are many types of divorce in Islam. Okay, so the first one is talak. Talak means break the marriage bond by pronouncing talak or divorce or both. For example, I divorce you by the talak 1. It committed by the husband to his wife. Okay. In domestic violence, talak can be used if the wife is nushuz. There are 2 types of talak. The first one is raji'i. Talak raji'i is divorcing the wife by talak 1 or talak 2. And you can be referred back without being married, as long as the iddah period has not expired. Why? For the talak ba'i, you divorce your wife by talak 3 and the period of iddah has already expired. Okay, talak ba'i is divided into 2. Ba'i sughra and ba'i kubra. Ba'i sughra is a divorce that includes hulu, fasa and talak raji'i, and the period of iddah has already expired. While talak kubra is divorcing the wife by 3rd talak. If you want to get back together, for the talak ba'i sughra, you should get a new akad and dowry, while for ba'i kubra, your ex-wife should marry another man and need to intercourse and divorce by that man, and after that you can get married again with your ex-wife. So if you still love your wife, just want to teach a lesson, choose talak raji'i. But if you not longer love your wife, then choose talak ba'i kubra. Okay, for the next we go to the fasa. Okay, fasa actually the type of divorce. Okay, the meaning of fasa is actually the annulment of the marriage bond it caused by the husband not fulfilled during the marriage contract or having a marital problem. In domestic violence, the rule in Islam are must. If your husband hitting you, because it actually violate the marriage contract. Therefore, as the wife, you can ask the divorce from your husband by fasa in a court if you have strong evidence. Okay, maybe you're wondering, if I do not have any evidence, my husband hitting me, and my husband didn't want to talak me, so is there any way that I can use? The answer, yes. As the wife, you can choose another way to divorce, which is khulu. The true meaning of khulu or redemption of talak is a divorce that occurs with the wife's desire and determination to divorce with a certain payment. So, if you can't stand anymore with your husband, then as the wife, you can pay for your husband to divorce in a court, and the payment should agree by the both. As example, I want to divorce you with the 500 ringgit Malaysia, and your husband say yes. And in Islam, the rule are must if the wife is dangerous, and also if your husband was not longer obedient to the Allah. And you have to remember, and if you want back together with your partner, you need a new akad and new dowry. Actually, there are hikmah from divorce, khulu and fasa. The first one is reject harm to the wife from abuse. The next is keep the wife rights, so that woman can uphold justice for themselves, and also give opportunity to annul the marriage, because I believe many husbands do not want to talak her wife easily if you not use the khulu and fasa way. For the last thing, divorce is not something that Allah like, but if danger in your life, then choose this method, because in the Islam, life is the most important, because it's the beautiful gift from Allah. That's all for me. Thank you for listening.